Welcome back, Generation Iron. This is another episode of Sex, Love, and Bodybuilding. I'm Margarita Ventura, and this is...
What's going on, guys? I have Akim here, and we're here to bring you another exciting topic today. What are we talking about today, Margarita?
Today, since we are now in competition season, we are going to talk about some tips of do's and don'ts of being with a competitor, and also for the person that's with the competitor.
Of course.
So let's start there.
It's a very, very, I don't want to say fragile or thin line when you date somebody that competes, because could go south real quick. You know, especially when you're dieting for a show, you know, and you're so regimented with everything, you know. Sometimes you tend to believe that, you know, bodybuilding is pretty much a soul universe and there's nothing else out there other than bodybuilding. And you get wrapped up in that so hard that you forget that there's life after bodybuilding.
That's true.
And then you can't just treat people one way and expect them to be supportive or basically be around after the show is over. You always got to keep in your head that pretty much it's a competition, but there's life after the competition. And when the competition is over, you know, whoever was involved or was there with you, they're going to be there or they're going to be around, and you don't want to treat those people like shit. And then after the competition is over, like, you know, then you got a whole bunch of making up to do.
Right.
So you just
So
keep
you're saying, like, don't mistreat them.
Exactly.
Right.
Just keep in mind, like I said, bodybuilding is fun, and but it's not the whole center of the universe. You know, there's life after bodybuilding. So when it comes to do's and don'ts as a competitor or dating somebody to compete, me being a competitor, I would say my biggest problem I have when I compete is I get very quiet. So if I'm dating someone, they always ask me, "Oh, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Stuff like that. It's just, there's nothing wrong with me. I just get very, very introverted. Like I everything comes from inside with me. You know, I do everything from the inside. Yeah. So I'm not vocal about anything. You know. So I just get very, very quiet when I diet. So I don't talk a lot. I don't ask for a lot. I don't say a lot. So it's very hard to have, like, you know, conversations or communicate with me. So that's one of the biggest problems I have as a competitor. I know a lot of people out there stuff differently, you know, they get aggressive, you know, they get short-tempered and stuff like that. But for me, I don't get any of those. I just get really, really quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're going on a journey.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, one of the things that one of my first coaches said to me was, when I first started to prep to compete, is the person that you're with really supportive of you? And at the time I was like, yes. And I think he was, as much as he could be, but he wasn't really an athletic person. So watching me evolve, I think he was really proud, but I think the mechanics he didn't understand. He was, I think for women especially, like, working out is really important. Obviously for bodybuilding, but so much of it is made in the kitchen.
Yes. And
I think for women especially, we're very, for me, I'm very drawn when I'm stressed out to not eat. Other women eat too much, emotionally eat. So I think sometimes that can get overlooked. So of course, you know, it's such a personal journey, and you never want to leave that other person out. So the best thing that they can do is support you, especially when it comes to the food. And especially when it comes to, like, you might be at the gym a little bit more often, and you might be going through your own emotions and doubts. And I mean, it's an up and down journey.
Yes, of course.
But it's so worth it. But it gets very tender, because that other person can feel really left out and maybe a little isolated. And you're also omitting yourself and not necessarily going to all the social things that you would before.
That's another big problem too.
You know?
I tend to, in terms of, like, being a couple, especially if one person competes and the other one doesn't, you know, that person's life tend to suffer because of the competition. Because let's say, you know, you had a little bit of a thing going where every Friday you go out to eat, or every Friday you go to the movies and stuff like that. When you start competing, you don't really want to be around stuff like that, because then the food, you can't really eat the food. You go to the movies, there's a whole bunch of freaking popcorn that you don't want to eat.
Or you're bringing your prep meals.
Exactly.
Like your little
Exactly.
in the bag and you're
So
whipping
then
it out.
that whole
Yeah.
aspect of the relationship tends to suffer. But
And you're not going out to drink
Exactly.
excessively with the
Yeah,
friends and
exactly.
eat brunch and all that stuff. So that's where my relationship at that time suffered.
Exactly.
Because that particular person really loved going out with the and loved having a great time, and
Yeah.
it just became such a intrusion of my sleep and like an excess of calories that I just couldn't participate in. And I remember even doing this thing where I would eat my prep meal before I would go out to eat with everyone, and that was okay. Like people just kind of like left me alone. But when it would go into the late night and the excessive drinking, I had to leave.
Yes.
And I felt very lonely in that relationship, and I'm sure he did too. But you know, so I think that it doesn't mean that you can't be with a competitor, and a competitor, it doesn't mean that you can't be with a non-competitor. I just think that that other person needs to be super independent and know that that person is reaching for something that's a little bit bigger than themselves.
Yes.
You know, like you're trying to be part of a legacy.
It comes down.
You know?
It comes down to being respectful.
Yeah.
Like even with the food, you know, if I'm competing and I buy eggs
Yeah.
and I
Tons.
buy my eggs to compete,
Yes.
don't touch my eggs.
That's right. That's right.
I'm being honest.
It's like,
Don't touch my
go
eggs.
get your own eggs.
Yeah, go get your own eggs. Don't touch my steak. Be respectful, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Just because we're in a relationship doesn't mean you got to eat the same thing I eat, especially when I'm competing,
Right.
you know? And if I'm competing, don't bring ice cream in the house.
Yeah.
You know, you just make it more hard for me.
It's like, why
And
are
then
you
we're going to
doing-
get
you're
into
breaking my
problems.
heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, don't bring cheesecake. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of cheesecake.
Yeah.
Why would you bring cheesecake in the house?
Yeah. It's like,
You know?
and exactly.
And for you girls out there,
Yeah.
don't order pizza.
Don't
What's
order
wrong with
pizza.
you? If your man is competing, don't bring pizzas in the house. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And you're going to have fights. You know?
Secretly eat the pizza. Go out with your girlfriend and sneak that, and then come back and be like, look, I brought chicken and broccoli for you. You know, like be mindful of that. I totally get it. I think, and then I dated someone who was into bodybuilding, but not a competitor. And this was a different situation where I wanted to compete, and I don't know, there'd be 1,000 reasons that would get in the way of why I couldn't.
So he was like the scared type. I always feel like he wasn't big enough, he wasn't ready. I had a few friends like
So
that.
something, I don't know what was going on there.
I had this one friend that he would start the diet, do every single thing, and then like maybe 2-3 weeks out from the show, he's just like, yeah, I don't really like the way I look. I
Like
feel I look
self-sabotaging.
small. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I look small. I'm gonna go back off season and then add some more size and try it again. And this went on for years, and up to this day, he never stepped on stage.
So I learned from that, that even dating someone with the same lifestyle as you, that was like, wow, there's a whole like psyche that needs to be the same as mine, or at least supportive.
I mean, the great thing about dating someone that doesn't compete, you know, especially if that person could cook,
Oh,
you know, you know, they
It's like,
take.
I love you.
They
You know what I
definitely
mean?
take care of you, because they'll cook all the meals, make sure you have breakfast and stuff like that.
It's
so that's
true.
You know, because they have all the energy and stuff like that. So that's definitely a plus.
Yeah,
You know, and it just makes you appreciate that person more, man.
absolutely. I mean,
So,
yeah.
like I said, you know, as far as the do's and don'ts, you know, you just at the end of the day, just having respect for each other and making sure that, you know, you have a mutual understanding that basically when it comes to like, hey, I'm doing a show, you know, I need your support and stuff like that, and try not to do anything to sabotage, you know, what I'm trying to achieve.
I've been debating all year whether I've been threatening to compete for a while, and finally I said, okay, I've picked a date, June, we're going for it. And the first thing he said to me was, how can I support you in your journey? I said, everything's fine. And then I thought about it again. I said, actually, this is how you can support me. Always have gallons of water around, lots of eggs. And when it comes to like meal prep and my meals, like just, dear God, help me, like, just help me with that. And he said, he repeated something he always says to me, number one rule, always feed your woman. Yeah, and
Good
so,
point.
and that's important, you know?
He has a good point right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
He feeds you, you're going to be happy.
It's true, and I think from the beginning he admired my dedication to the gym and how I like to stay home. I'm kind of a homebody and like to sleep and all that stuff. And I really appreciated that. And he's even slowed down a little bit with his, he always has to have business dinners, and he's slowed down with his going out and this and that. I mean, I'm not going to restrict him. By all means, you're not competing and trying to have the best physique. He wants to get gains. And I'm like, well, to get that, you need to adjust a couple things. So he's doing it and modifying within reason. Yeah. But I would never restrict him, just like he would never restrict me. Yes. So that's the respect. So you guys have that mutual understanding. Respect, yeah. And
as long as you could establish that, it shouldn't be a problem dating someone that doesn't compete or someone that does compete,
Yeah.
I think that the majority of times that couple has issues is because they don't talk about stuff. You have one person doing all this and the other person just basically just letting them do everything and not responding to anything. So I think if you have open communication and you speak to each other, problems would get resolved, or there shouldn't be any problem at all. I think nowadays couples, they don't really talk about anything at all, They just let a problem keep on going on, and then it boils over, and then that's when it becomes a huge issue. So if you could sit down and talk about it and put restrictions on certain things, it makes a relationship a lot healthier,
Ooh, you're getting deep there. I mean, so now we're touching upon maybe there's couples out there who are, maybe you're not competing or maybe you are competing, but you're getting super into fitness and health, and maybe the other person isn't. I mean, you touched upon something for people that might be already having problems. And when you're having problems with communication, it's like you can love someone, but you may not like them. Yeah. And then that affects your sex life. And then it's just like it just goes down the hill.
It's funny. I was actually watching Chris Rock stand up, and he said one thing on it that was really freaking funny. And he's just like, some of you guys are in a relationship right now, but your wife left you like 6 months ago.
Oh.
And I think that boils down to, like I said, like communication. Yeah. So if you're in a relationship and you whether it's a competitor or non-competitor, I think having communication is the most important thing that you could take out of basically having a healthy relationship. Being able to talk to that person when there's an issue, when there's not an issue. Let them know how you feel is better.
You're like touching upon communication, but in communication, I think people are so quick to talk. But it comes upon something that I've been reading about having empathy and having what they call empathic awareness and empathic listening.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and that leads to like larger relationship issues or things that people need to work on. But I think when you're a competitor, if the non-competitor listens to how they really feel, even in the silence, then there's better communication and vice versa.
And it goes both ways. Like if the competitor also actually listen to what the non-competitor have to say, it goes both ways. Because, like I said, there's life after bodybuilding, and you don't want to be that douche that, put his heart and soul into competing, and at the end of the day, when the show is over, nobody want to be around you, nobody likes you, nobody could stand you. You don't want to be that person. You want to make sure you could do what it takes and win, or be very, very competitive. But at the end of the day, you want to share it with somebody after it's over. You just don't want to get a trophy and then you can't share that moment after. You got to go out to eat and you're sitting on a table by yourself because nobody want to be around you. You don't want to be that person.
Food, communication, number one fan.
Of course.
And lots of great sex, right?
Well, that ties into
because I'm always gonna throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean,
great sex also allows you to increase your cortisol levels.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. And
cortisol levels, as you know, help you with the gains, right?
The lower your cortisol levels are when you're competing and stuff like that, the less stress you are. You're able to basically focus more and retain less water and stuff like that, so the body performs more efficiently. And you definitely want to limit stress when you're competing.
Yeah.
I just came back from Colombia this past weekend, and there was a men's pro physique show out there, and one of the competitors, he was winning, and the minute the judge took him from the middle of the stage, there was 3 guys up there, he was in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
And the minute the judge took him from the middle of the stage and put him on the end, and then he realized that he wasn't in the spotlight anymore, and he started, stressing out about it. And within a matter of a few seconds, his body went from polished, hard, grainy, everything was perfect, to basically he started fading, and he started fading so bad that they gave him a break, and like he had to go backstage, get his composure, and come back on stage confident and show off what he had. So basically stress is really, really big killer when it comes to bodybuilding. So you want to be as less stressed as possible, you know, and part of that is basically, like I said, developing that relationship with your partner where, you know, you have that communication skills that you won't be stressed while you're competing.
So you got to give each other the vitamin L, the vitamin love. It's true, because on the flip side, I've heard competitors say, you know, girlfriends and everything, that's a distraction. That'll destroy your competing day, your competition days, and vice versa. And,
yeah,
and that's very extreme.
I mean,
you
I've been in situations where I had a breakup a few months out from a show, and it could go, you know, it could go both ways. You know, you could use it as motivation to push harder and train harder, or you could basically be the loser that basically start moping and crying and, you know, don't pick yourself up and stuff like that. So it could go both ways. You know, in my situation, I choose it as a strength. I saw it as a strength to make me stronger. Exactly, fuel to basically make me stronger and, you know, work harder to put all that energy, all that negative energy, whatever it is, turn it into positive energy and focus on my show.
Yeah.
You know, so it could go both ways.
It could go both ways, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I think this was a great subject,
Of
especially during, you know, this competition season, and it I don't know, we got deep today.
Yeah,
you got deep.
Yeah, of
Akim.
course. You know, it's a very, very touchy topic because you know, you live the lifestyle. You know what it means to date somebody that competes. You know what it means to date somebody that doesn't compete. I've been in both relationships and stuff like that, so you know, I could use it as basically a stepping stone to give people advice when it comes to, you know, what to do and what not to do, because I've been in that situation.
Communication, listening, compassion, empathy, all of that. I mean, we're here to talk about intriguing things, but we also want people to embrace love and bodybuilding.
Yeah, I mean,
and have great relationships.
If one thing people could take away from the show, you know, they might say, "Oh, you know, but all the situations that we're giving you, all the examples that we're giving you, is basically examples from our lives. You know, stuff that we've been through and stuff like that." So, you know, we might not be professionals when it comes to relationship advice or relationship and fitness advice, but we've been in those situations.
Well, thank you for tuning in. I love this episode, and we hope that you love it too. Thank you so much for all of your comments and support. Definitely keep following us on Generation Iron, and follow Akim on Instagram at
IFBB Pro, Akim Williams. And it's a great session, guys. Touch on a lot of touchy topics and stuff like that, and I hope we gave you guys some great advice out there that you could use in your own relationship.
That's right. And you can follow me at Margarita Ventura Fit on Instagram, and just keep sending us messages and making comments on things that you'd love for us to touch upon, and we'll see you later.